Stress Less, Accomplish More. This is very Rab Nachmanish. This is very Hasidic style. And basically she came out with this book. The name of the author is Emily Fletcher. And basically she came out with a couple amazing lines. And she says, what happens if a person would invest 2% of their day to accomplish 98% of their day better? Imagine, take 2% of your day so you can have a better 98%. And she says something great that, we don't meditate or we don't do Hisbodedut to get good at Hisbodedut. Some people say, I'm not good at Hisbodedut. I'm not trying to speak. I can't speak. The reason why you meditate or the reason why you do Hisbodedut is to get good at life. It's not to get good at meditation itself. Because usually what happens is sometimes when a person is going to start anything spiritual, there's always going to be a hesitation. There's always going to be a Yetzer Hara that's going to constantly block him and tell him he's not doing it right. That's the laws of nature, like we said. There's no hesitation. You never see a guy hesitating when he's turning on Netflix. Never seen the guy hesitate. Or going to the Heat games. Somehow there's no Yetzer Hara involved. We need to understand that number one principle in spirituality. If something is bothering you, if you're hesitating doing something, there's usually because that thing's really good for you. And that's why, with patients, we have it in rehab clinics, you're trying to get them to meditate, anything else you tell them to do. No hesitation. But to do something for themselves, to do something spiritual, here comes the Yetzer Hara, here comes the evil inclination to make you nuts. We need to know that principle 101 in life. Because if you don't have that principle, you're going to say, maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's not for me. I don't feel like doing it. This is the world that we're living in today. If you don't feel like doing it, don't do it. It's pretty much the opposite in spirituality. But constantly, that means if we have something we want to do and we're being prevented from it, it's specifically because that thing is very important. And Reb Nachman has a whole Torah in Lesson 66 that when you feel like giving up, it's usually you need to turn it up. When you feel like giving up on life, when you feel like giving up on something, when you feel like giving up on his body, when you feel like giving up on a relationship, usually it's a sign to turn it up, not to give up. But like I said today, I was talking to a few clients. They came here from Cuba. They came here. They lost with nothing. They came here. People used to come to America. Nothing. They came here with nothing. They were millionaires in Cuba, or they were millionaires in other countries. They came here with nothing. Imagine that happening today. Give me the Prozac, give me this, PTCS. They can't handle this kind of stress. What people were, they're more resilient back then than today. Today, this generation is not very resilient, unfortunately. So, this is how much more we need spirituality today. Because when we're not resilient, we don't give proper meaning to things. And then unfortunately we don't expand, we don't grow, we spend all days on problems. So stress less and accomplish more is a very big concept in Chassidut. Stress less and accomplish more, the Reb Nachman tells us that the key to wealth, which we're going to talk about in Lesson 60, is to extend your day. When a day has contemplation, when a person has when his day is wide, his day is long, his day has contemplation, he's in control of his thoughts. He's in control of he manages his emotions. That day is long for him. That's called keter. That's called atik. When I wake up with a brand new attitude today, my day just extended. When I wake up with the same bitter attitude as yesterday, my days are very short. Because I'm too busy focusing on what? On what I'm going through instead of where I want to go. That is the problem today. You can see the same pattern. People are not in the moment. They're not in the moment. Because if a person thinks today that if God took away that problem that you're going through, that you swear that problem is the solution to everything in your life, there'll be another one that's going to come. There's always going to be a lack in life. We need to understand that. Like we were sitting in the car with a friend of mine from Israel. There's nothing more complete than a broken heart. That is today. You're always going to lack something in your life. And the ability to understand that it's okay. It's okay to lack. Life is not perfect. And when you come to that mentality, you no longer have to run and chase things all the time. So like we're going to say today, in lesson 60, the biggest key, Reb Nachman says that the day starts short for a person. Why? Because he wakes up with all the things he has to do. Wakes up with the tremendous burden of the day. I have 5 kids. I have them in the rehab business. You can't imagine if I just start thinking of the things I have to do today. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. I won't get up. But your job is to extend the day. Extend the day. Very similar to when a person starts working out. He has to stretch out the muscles, get the blood flow going, and then the day, all of a sudden he gets into it. This is the same thing spiritually. So waiting for a feeling, waiting for motivation a lot, waiting for that aha moment to start is not really going to happen. And you need to understand that. We need to understand that. It's really mind over matter. It's really the Yetzer Hara prevents me from wanting good, from doing good, and the only times I'm going to really feel great in my life is when I start conquering my feelings and I start doing things not based on how I feel. Like today, 7:30, I was a little exhausted. You know what, 8:30 class? Why don't I just watch the Heat game, relax? No, it's not an option. Because we can't get into that habit. So number one rule, if you want more, you have to do more. That's the rule in Kabbalah. If you want more in life, you have to do more. It's never a problem with a lack of a vessel, never a lack of light. It's always the vessel that we go through. Like the Rashab says something absolutely beautiful, and he says something. Rashab was a Chabad Chassid. Rabbi Rashab says there are so many people who suffer from they have mental incapacities, emotional disorders. Look what he says here. Caused by an overabundance of light and a lack of vessel. This is an Addict 101. So much desire, so much light he has, that person, but he's not properly using it the right way. Imagine if this person used the cravings that he had he could change the world. He could change the world with his cravings. But instead he's jumping fences with his cravings, and doing the impossible things in life. But imagine if he took that abundance of light and properly used it the right way. You could change the world. And he says here, this is caused by an overabundance of light and a lack of vessels. Very high souls, listen to this, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. That means they're very, very high souls. And they have a blessing in disguise. Imagine if they knew that. The problem is they don't know they have a blessing in disguise. They're too focusing on what? Look what I'm going through, my parents put me... They don't see the blessing because they're too focusing on what that means to them. They need a greater vessel to contain light. So like we say today, anybody in recovery, you have to be spiritual. You have to be spiritual. Because there's no way you're going to be able to contain this overabundant light that you have because your soul is so great. If the light is not contained properly, the imagination runs too quickly and a person is flooded with too much emotion for them to handle. This could easily lead to clinical levels of anxiety and depression. The ultimate solution would be to enlarge the vessel. It's too much imagination. It's like taking a kid who has so much imagination. No, stay home, put him in a room, that's it. No, he has to do something with that imagination. Look what it says. For example, if you had a champagne glass and a perfectly good enough cup of wine, it would be okay. But if you put that same champagne glass under a waterfall, it's going to break. It's not enough. The vessel is not enough to handle that. It's going to crack under pressure, and this is exactly what happens. They crack under pressure. There's nothing wrong with the glass. It's just that the vessel is not strong enough to handle the flow. For some instances, tranquilizers, antidepressants aim to reduce the flow of water so that the glass can handle it. But the flow is really a great blessing. Isn't that amazing? The flow is really a great blessing. It's an unbelievable it's a blessing in disguise, but you have to create the proper vessel for that flow of light that God's given you. Because not everybody wants to go and run after their cravings. Not everybody wants to have that kind of life. Not everybody has that kind of ratzon. Not everybody has that ratzon. Some people are very grounded people. They're not looking to become super spiritual. But this and I believe Rav Kook talks about it. He calls it, some of them, the souls from Tohu. It's a very, very, very high souls. And he says, God's gift to you. So live it the best way. How do you do this? You have to do it through prayer and meditation to properly channel the light. Like the same light that I had when I wanted to gamble 7 times. I had tons of light. What got me up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go gamble? You have to have some kind of light and some kind of desire to do that. But now I'm using it for spirituality. Before I used it for gambling. So it's really channeling the light, spirituality. You're able to channel that light that you have, and it's not a bad thing. It's a blessing in disguise. You don't want to shut the whole thing completely. You just want to manage it the right way. You want to manage it in spirituality. Imagine the imagination you had to go do something. Imagine if you used that imagination to hit a goal. You don't want a life of no imagination either, because what happens? You would be pretty much bored in your life. So it's really pretty much channeling that blessing that God's given you the right way. Channeling the blessing that God's given you. So again, we have to stop focusing what we're going through and where we want to go. That's one of the things, one of the common trends that I see people going through. They're too focusing on, I'm single, and they can't get out of their head. And if we can't get out of our heads, we can't accomplish more. That's the number one thing. Anxious people, they're always in their head. You could see the pattern. They're always in their head. So how could you accomplish more if you're always in your head? Got to get out of your head and enter the moment. Like I said before, exit your mind, enter the moment. And it's a pattern, by the way. We should understand it's a pattern that people do. The number one question people are asking today, what's going to be? What's going to be with me single? What's going to be? When am I going to get married? What's going to be with this Parnassa situation? What's going to be with my child that's in rehab? What's going to be? And all day long they're asking what's going to be. And what happens is you have to change that question, what's going to be. That's where you have to start acting trust. Because if you ask what's going to be too much, you're going to spiral with fear and anxiety out of control. And that's something we really, really need to work on. Another principle in spirituality, nothing will change until you do something else daily. We're not asking you here to just sit and play defense in life. You have to play offense. Spirituality is a lot about playing offense, creating gratitude, creating an offensive strategy, not just saying, well, I had a good day or I didn't have a good day. I made it a good day. I changed my perspective. I made it. I created that day. Because like we said, many of our teachers, I believe the Beni Shais, you're given a paintbrush in life. You're given a black canvas, a white canvas, and you're giving a paintbrush, and you have to color it whatever the world means to you at that particular time. So it's up to us based on how we make those days. Like we said, the fourth rule that we need to understand, that all spiritual things have a Yetzer Hara. If you're going down the aisle and you're dating somebody, you're about to get married, and you don't have one obstacle, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. It's like asking for a marriage with no problems. There's something wrong with that situation. Either that person's not alive, but there's something wrong. That's why the Gemara says, if you have 40 days without suffering, you were given Olam Haba already. It's something wrong. We don't want to create problems, God forbid. Right, I can't say any more Moroccan jokes, so we don't want to create problems, but without the heart beating, nothing's alive. Because, like again, without there has to be a tzimtzum. The day has to have an end to it. Like we said, when we wake up in the morning, it represents shachrit. It represents having dat. It represents clarity of the day. The day's wide. 7 o'clock in the morning, you see clarity of the day. And then when you get to the afternoon prayer, you see the sun's already coming down. There's constriction, a lot of traffic, there's pressures. That's a tefillah ve'ani. When a person prays mincha, it's like a poor person's offering. Because he can't pray with the clarity that he had in the morning. He has to pray with whatever he's got. That's why the mincha offering is a flower. It's flour, because you're coming with whatever you got. Because obviously you had a day with all kinds of obstacles that day. So you're coming there, and at night, that represents faith. So you could see this is a cycle in our lives all day long. The mornings, you have to score big in the mornings. That's what I tell people. You have to score big in the mornings. If you do not score big in the mornings, you're going to lose out in the rest of the day. You're going to play catch-up all day long. So creating, what we're going to talk about is creating the appropriate things to do in the morning, so we're able to take that appropriate stance instead of what? Investing that 2% of our day, so the 98% is better. That's the only way this changes. A person has to take part of the day, like Rav Nachman's saying here. He has to extend the day. It could be waking up 25 minutes earlier. Imagine how your life would change if you woke up 10 minutes earlier, you put music on, and you started manifesting on all the gratitude you have in the world. I promise you, very few people would affect you. Very few people would make you upset, because you're vibrating on such abundance of light that it would take a really hard person to make you angry. But when you wake up with a default pattern, or you wake up upset from yesterday because you never dealt with an issue, then any little thing is going to get you that day. So that's how your days become shorter. That's how the days become shorter. Like we said, fear of God extends your day. Where shortness, where fear, anxieties, what do? Rav Nachman's going to talk about. They shorten your day. That's the big concept here. We need to expand the day versus shortening the days, versus the days being shortened with the same attitude as yesterday, with the same thoughts as yesterday. You remember, we get 60,000 thoughts every single day, and they're usually negative from the same one. So you're recycling a lot of garbage all day long. So unless we create, and also it's not, you can't yell at the tape recorder. A tape recorder is playing something that you don't like. What are you going to do, yell at the tape recorder? The tape recorder is only playing what you've been telling the tape recorder for years. So that's what people do. They scream at the tape recorder. Why is this doing this? Why am I thinking like this? Why? Only when you press record can something happen. A new habit. Record. Yelling at the tape recorder is not going to it's not going to do anything. That means whatever happened in the past happened in the past. But our job is to make that re-record a new reality. This is one of the biggest shifts. Nothing changed in my life until I changed one habit differently. When I started His Bodhidut, when I started manifesting on gratitude, when I started visualizing cheesecake parties. These things had to be created in existence. They didn't just happen on a random day. They were created through speech, through Torah, and then what happens? You create a vessel, like they say, if you build it, they will come. If you build that vessel, the blessing will come. Same thing with singles. Stressing out of what's going to be with this whole singles market. Nobody's committing, this one's not. But if you build it through working on yourself, becoming the one, and working on yourself, and really asking God to show you, to let you have compassion, to be open-minded with people, the blessings will come. That's how it works. It's the same thing. Field of dreams. If you build it, the blessing will come. The blessing does not come if you don't build it. That's how it works in Kabbalah. Because remember, the arousal must be made below. It doesn't come from on high. The arousal has to become below. That's the way that God made the world. In the beginning of creation, He created the world, and then He made man responsible for it. That's why He made man pray for rain. He could have had rain. What was the problem with rain? Rain came down, but man had to pray for it. So it forced man to make an arousal, to make a change, to create a stimulus below, and then the reciprocal energy will come on high. So like I said, when people are really upset, and they're going through very tough situations, and I have a lot of mercy for them. But then I ask them, okay, what are we doing next? And I give them a list of things to do. No, I don't have time for that. Then this is where things just become the same thing over and over. That's where the toughest thing is. And again, we have to have compassion for people, but we need to understand that if we do the same thing, we're going to get the same thing. We're going to always get the same results. And the last thing, specifically, I remember going through this 7 years ago, the last thing that we want to do in life is complain about something. Because what happens when we start complaining about something, not only do we not get what we want, but the things that we get, that we're dealing with, even get worse. And this is one of the worst things that happened in the Jews in Egypt. They complained. They complained, is God here or not? So more exiles came to them. More tests came to them. So that's the one thing where we have to break that cycle. because, like we said, it's so hard to think greater than you feel when you're going through a tough situation, when you're going through a test, when you're going through that. But you have to force yourself to think greater than you feel. Believe me, you have no idea how hard it is when working in a detox and rehab business, because they're drowning out, they're down and out. They have a whole mountain to climb up, and they don't even know where to start. But that's the beginning. When you start getting going in life, the rest will let Hashem do the rest. You have to start creating that arousal. It's like the guy who wants to lose 50 pounds. He doesn't have to lose 50. He only has to lose 10 pounds. And let Hashem give him the momentum for the rest. All you have to do is give me 10 pounds. Give me a little bit, and I'll open up the rest for you. But if it's not all or nothing, we have to, and it has to be slow, and it has to be with patience, etc. All right, so let's talk a little bit about her book, what she's saying here. So she recommends, obviously, much of what I say usually is nothing's going to happen unless new things happen. And the most important thing, as she recommends here in this book, is mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting, which is things that we spoke about. Being mindful, meditating, where we say today his bodhidut, and manifesting. We're going to talk about each one, where it is exactly in Reb Nachman's teachings, because we also need to understand that the mind thinks involuntary. That means our thoughts are not our enemies. Reb Nachman says God will send you a thought, and your job is to sometimes even struggle with that thought to force yourself to think positive. Because the Yetzer Hara always, when a person's getting into a fight with somebody, or somebody angers you, and what do we have to do? What is the number one prayer that Hashem says every day? May my compassion overcome my anger. There's people that anger us, there's no question. So what are the most important things that we have to pray for is what? May my compassion overcome my anger. This person, I want to give it to them. But I have to mimic Hashem by doing what? Giving them compassion. Giving them compassion. Giving them compassion. And it's very hard today, obviously, when people have wronged you, etc., to give them compassion. But that's one of the most important things so unless we're mindful, which we're going to talk about, is you're not going to be able to do that, because you're going to just again, react instead of create. React instead of create. So let's talk about first lesson 60. Lesson 60 is one of my favorite Torahs. And Reb Nachman tells that the way a person attains wealth, even financial wealth, is through the aspect of lengthening your days. For a person needs length of days in order to receive wealth in contemplation. It doesn't just mean wealth particularly. It could mean a wealthy life. A life where you monitor your breathing. You can go during the day. If a person's he's careful, he can even recognize his breath, because we know every single emotion affects the way you breathe. If a person's anxious, his breath is completely different. If a person is calm, his breath is completely different. Every single emotion, it's unbelievable how every single emotion, the state you're in, not only affects your pulse, which is your hands. That's how the Baal Shem Tov used to recognize if a person was sick. He would touch his pulse, and he would recognize from the flaw in the pulse what's going on with the guy's life. Same thing today with Chinese medicine. They check your pulse. No x-rays first. First the pulse. Because the pulse is an indication of the state of mind that you're in at all times. I can change my pulse all the time if I change my state. Length of days is that a person must attempt to extend and increase his days. Because every day that you're going to have, each person is very, very narrow at first. In other words, the beginning of the day, the devotions seem completely overburdened. If you constantly think you have to work, you have to pray, you have to do this, you have to do that, it's going to be extremely difficult for you. You're going to get overwhelmed in the morning. And the last thing you're going to want to do is do what? Is get into some kind of spiritual technique or any because you're so like, I don't have time, I have to do this. I don't have time, I have to do this. That's the number one thing that the evil inclination is going to tell. I don't have time, I have to do this. It always happens. So if you don't religiously create where I'm getting up at 5 o'clock, no matter what, it's not going to happen. Because the minute you get up, even close to that time, right away, let me go stress about something. You can't even relax. Let me go stress about this. There's no, and while you're doing it, you're not even going to be there. That's why, what is real mindfulness today? Real mindfulness is, in Hebrew, it's called kavana. When I have kavana means intention, kavana. I have concentration on what I say. What I say, it enters my heart. If I want to get a prayer answered today, my prayer is based on not how long I pray. It's not the amount of the prayer, not how long the prayer is, it's the faith behind the prayer. When I have faith behind the prayer, I'm all in. When I read a word, I'm all in. I could feel it in my heart. I could feel that prayer. It's not the amount, because you could but there's no heart. So extending the day, when a person extends his day, and he's very serious about this. I start with music. I start the day with his bodhidut, with my talking to God. Other people start with meditation. And right away what you want to do is you have to recognize that there's certain things that you're going to go through. That if you think about these things, what are they going to do to your day? They're going to shorten your day. If I start thinking about, let's say I have money issues. If I start thinking about the bills that I have to pay, or the stress that I'm involved, right away my spirituality is cut off. Because the minute fear enters, trust leaves. An indication that you're struggling with anxiety is an indication that you're lacking trust in your Creator. The more anxiety you have, the more lack of trust the person has. Remember how important trust is, because when you have trust in God, that allows you to have what? Vision. You could see. You're going through a vision. You could see clarity. Trust will give you vision. Will let you see the whole field. Person who runs a fear, he can't see anything but the immediate moment. So, stress is very related to fear. What's going to be? What's going to be with this? What's going to be with that? The minute you start asking what's going to be, it's like the Jews asked in Egypt, is God here or not? Unfortunately, some people have gotten to this habit that if they fear that if they don't worry about it, then and it comes too easy, they can lose it because they don't think they're worthy enough to get it easy. But it works the complete opposite. Worry and anxieties, what do? They disrupt the pipeline of Shefa from above. They kill the pipeline. They destroy it. The more you worry about it, the less you get. The more it's squeezed. So you have to have this concept of calm confidence. If you don't have a ritual in the morning where you meditate on God creating the world every single day, that's why when we say Parshat Haman says the man comes down every single day, brand new. Do you think people every day wake up like it's their first day at work? No. Because they're too busy, again, they have a pattern of being anxious about being anxious. I'm anxious about anxiousness. So that does not allow you to have extension of days. So if you tell me your schedule, I could tell you pretty much the kind of day you're going to have. Because if there's no room to work on the 98%, if you don't have that 2% of your day to work on 98% of the day, then what's going to happen? You're going to get 100% stress. And so being home at night and going to sleep with sorrow and sadness is very frowned upon. Why? Number one, why? Is because the soul will never get refreshed at night. And you're going to wake up more tired than you went to go to sleep. And there goes Starbucks every single corner. You need 4 cappuccinos to get through 9 o'clock in the morning. There's a problem with that. I used to have literally 6 coffees every day. I was so burnt out. It had nothing to do with the coffee. Now I don't even drink coffee. Because I recognized it was spiritual. I was living on fear. If you live on fear, imagine living in Gaza every day. You're gonna get nervous. But you're not living in Gaza. You're living in Aventura, New York. But these constant threats that we're constantly having do not allow the day to have contemplation. Why? Because Rav Nachman says that breathing, listen to this, breathing is the main factor that controls the way you think. When a guy gets angry, what do you tell him? Just take a breath. What do you mean take a breath? Because there's no oxygen in your head. You're thinking with the heart. And this is what the Zohar says in Lesson 60. The Zohar says that if it wasn't for the lobes of the lungs cooling off the heart would consume the body. It would consume the brain. If you don't have something cooling you off spiritually, the heart's just going to consume the heart today. So our job is to really, the first thing in the morning, we want to meditate I meditate on gratitude, I meditate on abundance, I meditate on the blessings I have with music. Because then that really takes that level a different way. I meditate on having so much light in my life that I can give it to others. That's how I'm able to have so many classes. If I was thinking about all the headaches I got to deal with, I wouldn't be able to have one class. I wouldn't have the head to do the one class. But when you meditate like that, you start feeling abundant, and then you attract abundance. You attract positivity. You attract opportunities. But the opposite is also true. The opposite is true. If you meditate on fear, and you worry about fear all day long, and you think about things, the same. I know this sounds super simple, but what do you expect to happen? You have to send the signal to the universe, to Hashem. You have to send. That's what our sages say. When you have bitachon, when you have trust, you know what comes down? Mercy. A person who trusts in God has mercy. That God has mercy for that person. But fear shortens your day. Even Rabbi Rush, he gave us here. He gave us advantages and disadvantages of happiness. Number one, when a person is joyful, his heart is open. If my heart is open, I can pray. If my heart is open, I can give. If my heart is open, there's no limit. I can manifest. I can dream. I can be open-minded. If my heart is closed, I can't do any of those things. When a person is joyful, kindness, salvation, and success are drawn to him. Thus, a person who attains joy will succeed in everything he does, because he will have an abundance in everything and a good income, guaranteed. You have simcha, shefa comes down. That's the way it works. Like we said before, simcha removes the gates of prayer. Tears open them. Simcha removes them. Imagine you get yourself in a good mood. You really feel gratitude, and then you start praying. You know what kind of differences in your day, how you pray? When a person is joyful, he will certainly be elevated, and he will gain prominence. When a person is joyful, he's going to attain healing in his body and soul. How many times do we say that most sicknesses are due to what? A flaw in what are the four elements? The four elements: earth, fire, water, and air. When there's a flaw, there's a dis-ease. What does a dis-ease mean? Dis-ease. There's no ease in the body. There's no harmony. Joy heals everything. Reb Nachman says most illnesses, God forbid, are from a lack of joy, and simcha is the healer. Why do you think in Breslov they dance so much, and they're constantly dancing, they're constantly happy? Why do you think they're doing that? Because they know life is tough. And if I don't create that simcha, if I don't create that happiness myself, I'm going to get dragged into society with all these Democrats and this and all this garbage that's going on. I'm going to get dragged into this garbage that's happening today. If I don't create that simcha myself, I'm going to watch CNN all day long. Maybe be miserable. I have to create that simcha. So Reb Nachman says, even if you have to dance. We have some clients in our facility, they just start dancing. There's a couple of Breslov clients. They have too much light, unfortunately. We have to calm them down. But they dance because when you're dancing, we know today, where does all the din go? Where does the judgment go to a person? His feet. You tell I can't even move. I'm exhausted. Can't even move. I don't want to get out of bed. Why? Because the din went to the feet. The feet is the judgment. So when you lift your feet, it's an indication that the judgment left you. That's an indication, what Nachman says. The judgment left you. We know, sometimes we can, if you're very happy, what do people do? They jump up in the air. What do they do when they're happy? They jump up in the air. Why? It's an indication of joy. The heart. The whole body feels it. So it's very, very important. Imagine starting a ritual every morning where you have music and you have gratitude and you have you're moving your body. You're going to come into the day completely different. you're going to come into the day completely different. When a person is joyful, his intellect and his mind are strengthened. When a person is joyful, the Holy One rest on him. It's one of the indications. If you want, it doesn't matter if you're Chabad, Breslov, this. It's very simple. Happiness equals God. Unhappiness equals God removes himself from the person, unfortunately. This is a very dangerous thing, guys, because one of the number one indication that Reb Nachman says that will bring you to lose your spirituality is lust over money. That's America 101. Having a lust over money is the number one indication that you will fall in spirituality. So if you're in a business and you're aggressive in business, you have to give charity. Because through the charity, at least you can make a rectification for that. But if you're just running, one bad deal goes through, next thing you know, you don't see this guy in a week. I never forget the guy, he started his business, and every email that he was sending and every paper he gave me, BH, saying B'ezrat Hashem. I was like, listen, I know you just started your business, but calm down. Every little thing, BH, B'ezrat Hashem. I said, can I have a conversation with you without saying B'ezrat Hashem for 1 second? Just, can I have a conversation? Because I know the guy, he's very excited. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, no, the guy's nowhere to be found. I said, I'm missing the B'ezrat Hashem on your paper. No, you don't know what happened in business. The deal went through. You see? The deal went through, off. So did Hashem left. So you have to have the proper tzimtzum. You have to have it with that. Don't get too overly enthusiastic sometimes also, because it doesn't work also. So we have to do it in measures. He attains faith, he attains happiness. Most importantly, he attains a vessel to receive blessing. When a person's not happy, God forbid, weakness, God forbid, suffering, judgments, arguments, fears. Look at the amount of leverage that we have. Disgrace, pain in the heart, imagination of all kinds of koach medamim. This is what happens the opposite. So you can see, anytime you want to change something, you have to, like Rabbi Rush did in this book called A New Light, phenomenal book. Pros and cons. You do a business, pro and cons. Pros of being happy. Look at the tremendous blessing. Cons of not being happy. Look at the list every day and see, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to be happy? What do I got to do to change my state? What do I have to do? And then you make a serious decision. Because once there's simcha, there's contemplation. Wealth comes because the day is long. The day is long. I can have the same situation. When I'm in a good state, I can have the same issue in my life, and I can give it a completely different meaning. I can give it a completely different definition. But if I'm not in a good state, and I'm not breathing properly, that same situation is going to rumble, and it's going to become a constant stress. Extending your days is the most important thing. You need to ask yourself, how are your days? The amount of the extension of the days, how are you breathing on your days? When you have a good day, think about how you breathe. Think about what you're focusing on those days. Think about how the day, what meaning you give to things on those days. And the days that you're playing catch up, what kind of days are those? They have no light those days. They're dark days. And those dark days do not produce shefa. And that's why it's very important to, even if a person is having a rough day, to take a time out and he can restart the day. It doesn't mean the day, it's good or bad at 9 o'clock in the morning and it's not, okay, the day's gone. No. If you see the day's going the way it's going, at 12 o'clock, stop, call a time out, and figure out a way to reboot the day. Reb Nachman used to do that 7 times. Because what he did is he restarted his days. Like we said before, it's differently from having one bad day or one bad hour. I could have a bad hour, it's not so bad. But if every day becomes a whole day, how about an hour? 2 to 3, I had a rough day, it's a rough hour, but the rest of the day I had length. So now you know, when I extend the day, I'm extending everything. I'm extending my vessel. When I shorten my day, that means the most important thing we have to understand is to conquer the morning. Is to get ourselves in a good state. Okay, and this is what he says here. Reb Nassim says the number one way to have a better day is by a new attitude. a new attitude, we do this constant mantras. When you read the Man every single day, a meditation, we're supposed to read the Man, Parshat Man every single day. And when you read that, read it in English, you could say, it says God is sending blessing down in order to test you. And every single day has this brand new blessing. And every single day, and if you try to hoard the blessing, if you try to accumulate too much, it spoils. That's what the blessing says. So you have to also know that every single day has a specific blessing to it. When somebody has a bad day, has a bad dream, you know what they tell them? To fast. Right? Why do they tell them to fast? What does fasting have to do with a bad dream? Because that day that he had a bad dream, the day had no light to it. So the fast was sent to him as a reminder to wake up. What happens when I fast? You know what I do? Where am I getting the energy? Where am I getting the energy from the fast? I have to get it from yesterday's food. So I go back into yesterday's day and I rectify that day. That's why fasting is so important. Because when you fast, you go into yesterday. You go into that day that was fallen, the day that was dark, and you can now relight that day up. That's why I say it's a beautiful reason. Why when a person has a bad dream, or let's say there's a decree in a place, or there's a decree in a place, what do they tell them? Fast. Or the rabbis call it Tanit Dibur. Because that day had no vitality. That day had no life force to it. So you have to go and rectify it by fasting. Fasting is a very precious thing spiritually because it shows self-control. Because the word neshama, which means soul, and neshima means breath. So now you know your soul. Everybody's into their soul state. How you breathe, how you react to something versus responding to something. How you view something that happens to you. How do you breathe after that? When something happens to you and you say, this is a challenge. I'm getting challenged today. I'm excited. My breath is completely different. But if I say, this again, another problem again, look at the difference. Excited, extension of breath, shortened breath. When I read this Torah, I monitor my breath constantly. Why? Because my breath is my vitality. The way I breathe is the way I think. Even to the fact that you're going to get to, how long do you think it takes you to recover from anger? People say it takes science 4 to 5 hours to recover from an anger attack, from getting angry. 4 to 5 hours, imagine that. So let's say you get angry at 9 o'clock in the morning, somebody pisses you off. And all of a sudden, you're in recovery till 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock comes, you finally get your brain back, 5 o'clock, the day's over. That is shortened days. Those days are very short. How was your day, honey? Terrible. When somebody terrible, no life, that day had no light. That day had no light. And that's where you start recognizing that I have to take control. Stress less, accomplish more. Stop stressing, because most of anger is things you can't even control anyway. That's the whole problem. The whole mindset of a person getting angry and a person constantly stressing and constantly getting anxious and constantly worrying, he can't even control it anyway. That's the whole point. The whole point is he's trying to control something that's not his business to control. What is worry? Trying to control the situation. What is anger? Trying to control. That's the whole problem. The problem is you're in the wrong lane. When you have bitachon, you let go. You let go. This is what it is. Work, let go. I'm doing my thing, and I let go, and I can breathe. I can breathe. I don't have to worry about everything. I work. I let go. The illusion of you have to do hishtadlut. You have to do an effort. But if you overdo it, you can go against yourself. Just like if you overtrain, not only will you not work out properly, but you know what's going to happen? Your muscles are not going to grow. Overtrain causes cortisol. Overtraining could actually cause the opposite effect. The opposite effect. That means not only will the muscle not grow, but your muscles are not going to go. So that's where we have to really extend our days. And this is where Rav Nachman says breathing is the main factor of proper functioning of the intellect. This is because in order for the intellect to function properly, so that it attains contemplation, it needs oils in the body. The intellect is like a lamp. That's what he says here. If it's lit, the oils are drawn to it. And the oils are drawn to the burning wick. But when there's no oils in the body, because of all stress, etc., the intellect cannot be lit for contemplation. The solution could be right in front of our eyes, but you know what's the problem? It's concealed from us. It's concealed. The answer could be right in front of your eyes, but it's concealed. It's concealed. This leads to people going insane. That's what Rav Nachman says. This is what causes people to lose their mind. When they have too much stress, and you're going to speak about the amygdala shrinking today, the amygdala taking over, amygdala hijacking today, anger rages. What is this? Lack of spirituality, controlling the heart, controlling the emotions, and not allowing the intellect to function properly. This is exactly what he's saying. As it says here, all the moisture and oils of the body are maintained by breathing. The more I breathe, breathing also means when I'm learning Torah, I'm breathing. I feel calm. When I'm praying, I'm breathing. This is also a form of breathing, by the way. When you're praying and you're learning, automatically you're breathing, you're cooling down the heart, you're cooling your emotions. How many times you get out of a class, you're a different person, you think differently, you're a little bit more positive, you have a little bit more of an enthusiasm, because you develop that cooling down the heart. The whole thing is cooling down the heart. And this is specifically for men. If they don't keep the fluids in, they let them out, unfortunately, that can also cause them to go insane, by the way. That's our sexual energy. The person's sexual energy is his fluids in his body. If he lets too many fluids out, he has no brain left. No brain. No, like he says, there's no oil. So it leads to people going insane. That's what Rav Nachman's telling you. That's why they used to castrate people when they were crazy. Because there was no contemplation. How many times we speak in recovery, you have to keep your sexual energy to yourself. Because if it's going out, that's the fluid that I need you to understand what I'm talking to you about. But if there's no fluid in the body, what am I going to talk? There's nothing. There's an empty base of zeroness. What can you talk? Help! Look what's happened. That's what happens today, unfortunately. That's what Rav Nachman's saying here. Because the lungs receive the cool air from outside. And this is the aspect of the soul of a lamp. The soul of man is a lamp of God. The existence of proper functioning of God's lamp is where your intellect, mainly from breathing. The way you breathe, the way you control your emotions, is directly correlated to your intellect. It's directly related to whether you're in the mood to do anything you want to do. How many times do people tell, too stressed to do this? I don't have the head for this. How many times? I don't have the head. Where's the head? Where's the head? If we lose bitachon, we're going to say, I don't have the head for this. Or here, let me listen to you. I don't have the head for this. Where is the head? Where's the head? If we don't know where the head is, then how are we going to fix the problem? So we continue the lap of worry and anxieties and worry and worry and worry again. And what's going to be, and what's going to be. And then this one comes home nervous. She causes the other one to become nervous. And it's a whole, then the shalom bayit goes off. It starts from a business problem, then it starts from a shalom bayit problem, and then it starts from the kids, and then the whole thing just blows up to misery. What are you doing about it? That's the key. What am I doing about it? I have to control my breath. I need a new ritual. The new ritual is when you wake up in the morning and you do his bodhiduta, when you wake up in the morning and you monitor and you start contemplating on what am I here in this world? What am I doing? What do I want? Then you could start creating opportunities. Then you could start going from creation to reaction. I'm creating the day. I can't tell you this is my key to success, because no matter what kind of day I had, I recover right away the next day. Earlier, more focused, just like you see good sports stars, they get blown out of a game. You know what they do? They wake up earlier to shoot more free throws. They don't wake up, I'm burnt out from yesterday. No, that's a sign that means if I got blown out yesterday, it's a sign that I need to do the opposite. I need to wake up and take this seriously. Not wake up and say I'm burnt out from yesterday. You should recover so much more. How much more do you need? How much more oxygen do you need? When you live like that, you have solutions for everything and you have no questions. When we don't live like that, all day long, what's going to be? If I'm having an anxiety problem, I'll wake up a half an hour earlier and pray about bitachon. Pray for trust in Hashem. I cut that pattern really quick. You have to cut that pattern really, really quick. Just like somebody's getting married and they start losing 5-6 pounds. Right away, what do? Drastic diets. Same thing you need to do. Same thing you need to do here. And that's how you extend the days. Part of this is also manifestation, which he says. Basically, you have to create goals. Any time that I have, there's specific goals that I have that I have today. And what I do every single day, 5 minutes, I picture like that came true, and I picture myself throwing a Sudat Hoda, a Suda with cheesecake, or whatever it is. I picture already the celebration party of the Thanksgiving party. I already picture it in my mind already. That's how you have a goal, you have something that you need, picture it in your mind. It's a Jewish concept. It's not just it's called manifesting, showing that you're worthy. That's what a lot of the tzaddikim. They'll tell you you're in a problem. What do they tell you? You know what? Do a Sudat Hoda'ah, or when you get out of the problem, do a Sudah for Rosh Hashanah Bar Yochai. They want you already to think about the Sudah. They don't want you to think about the problem. Because if you think about the problem, you're gonna lead to what? Fear. But if I think already about the Sudah, about throwing that party, what's going to happen? My mind is going to be tailored there. But it's so hard. I'm stressed. Again, what's causing the stress is the same thinking as before. So Reb Nachman really, he emphasized on and this is what she says, stress makes you stupid and scared. Great line, no? Pretty much it. Stress makes you stupid and scared. The opposite is spirituality, of having bitachon, having trust. Knowing that if you have one thing that's bothering you, if you're lacking trust. Last year I had a problem with trust. A major chaos in my life. Every day woke up earlier. Okay, focus on trust. Talk about trust. Why am I not? Help me trust you, Hashem. Help me view life as a challenge. Help me get out of this threat mode. Work on myself, and then everything changes. But you have to speak. If you hang around the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. But if you're not around the barbershop, you're not going to get a haircut. You got to hang around the barbershop, and you're going to get a haircut. That's what Hashem wants from you. Even if you're not saying the right words, even if you don't deserve the haircut, if you just hang around enough, you're going to get the haircut. So may Hashem help us that we should be zochet to extend our days. That is how you know. It could be a simple exercise as waking up 20 minutes earlier. This is the toughest thing to do. Starting, even for you, if all of a sudden you wake up at 7 and you wake up at 6:40, it's going to be almost impossible for you. It's too early, it's mentally. You're going to create all kinds of things. I can't, it's too early, I'm going to be tired. Opposite. Why are we tired? Because our souls are not refreshed. That's why we're tired. If your soul is refreshed, you wake up with 4 or 5 hours of sleep like this, like you want to rock the whole world. But when your soul is not refreshed, that's why you're exhausted. It has nothing to do with the amount of sleep you have. You could sleep 6 hours, be refreshed, wake up you could sleep 12 hours and want to sleep again for another 12 hours. It's not the amount of sleep. It's whether or not the soul is refreshed during sleep. And does it go to the right place, and does it get energized? So may Hashem help us that we should all be zochet, that we should extend our days, which leads to keter, which leads to wealth and abundance. May Hashem help us. All right, that's today's class.